Marcus Johnson had only been in his new home for 3 weeks when the first knock came late at night. He had chosen the quiet suburban neighborhood for its tree-lined streets, its apparent peace, and the chance to finally put down roots after years of moving from one military base to another. To the neighbors, he looked like just another middle-aged man trying to start over, but inside, Marcus still carried the reflexes of a special forces soldier. He never ignored a sound, never opened the door without assessing first, and never fully trusted anyone until it prevent himself. When he opened the door, 3 men stood outside in dark uniforms. Their badges shined under the porch light, but the insignia was ODD, nothing he recognized. The tallest one introduced himself as Officer Daniels, HOA Security Division. His tone was clipped, authoritarian. They claimed there was a new neighborhood safety rule, requiring homeowners to surrender personal firearms for inspection and temporary safekeeping. Marcus raised an eyebrow, hiding his disbelief. He knew his rights, and no homeowners association had any legal power over his federally registered weapons. Instead of arguing, he leaned casually against the doorframe, masking the way his heart rate had already slid into the calm rhythm of focus. He asked questions: what ordinance, what statute, what police department were they aligned with? Their answers were vague, rehearsed, and full of holes. He noticed one man's holster carried a cheap knockoff pistol, the kind sold online without a serial number. Another had mismatched boots, not standard issue. To Marcus, the details screamed fake. He let them talk while his mind worked like a battlefield computer. Their posture wasn't disciplined, their movements weren't tactical, these were amateurs playing dress up. When they pressed harder, he gave a slow smile and told them he'd think about it, and check with his lawyer in the morning. The leader didn't like that answer, but Marcus' steady gas made them retreat, muttering that they'd be back with proper documentation. As their car pulled away, Marcus closed the door softly, locking it in 3 places. He didn't panic, he planned. Pulling a small notebook from his drawer, he wrote down everything: time, appearance, license plate, words spoken. Then he pulled up his military-grade surveillance kit, small cameras he had never expected to need in civilian life, and began setting them up around his home. In the quiet hours past midnight, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a mug of black coffee, staring at the notice. He hadn't wanted trouble in this new chapter of his life, but trouble had found him. And if there was one thing his service had taught him, it was this: peace is something you prepare to defend. Marcus woke the next morning with the same discipline he'd had in the service: up before dawn, workout, shower, then a careful scan of the perimeter. The cameras he had set the night before were already recording, and he found himself reviewing footage with the same focus he always gave to mission intel. Sure enough, at 3:17 ночи, the same dark sedan had circled his cul-de-sac 2 hours before parking down the street. The silhouettes of the 3 HOA cops were faint but unmistakable. They hadn't driven up. Instead of reacting with anger, Marcus went methodical. He started by talking to neighbors, casually at first. An older couple down the block admitted they had been fined for unauthorized gardening. Another family whispered about having their outdoor grill confiscated after a late-night visit from the same men. People were afraid, ashamed, and convinced they had no power against the HOA. Marcus knew fair tactics when he saw them. This wasn't regulation, it was extortion. He began building his own file, logging testimonies, taking discrete photos, collecting every violation letter he could get from the neighbors. While others had been too scared to challenge the HOA, Marcus had no such weaknesses. He had fought warlords overseas, a corrupt neighborhood committee wasn't going to intimidate him. When the fake cops returned the following weekend, Marcus was ready. This time they showed up in daylight, walking boldly to his front door. They carried papers stamped with official-looking seals, but Marcus noticed the typos. Government documents didn't misspell words like ordinance or jurisdiction. He stepped outside before they could knock, his prisoners calm but commanding. You boys were here of the Second Amendment. Marcus asked, his voice low, steady. The men shifted uneasily but pressed their script, demanding his firearms. Marcus refused, firmly but politely, while the cameras hidden in his flower beds captured every word. When they threatened to report him to county enforcement, Marcus tilted his head, smiled, and replied, please do. I'd love to hear what county you think you're in. The encounter ended with tension thick in the air, the three men retreating to their car. But Marcus wasn't celebrating, he knew escalation was inevitable. That night, his power flickered and cut off for an hour. The following day, his mailbox was found pried open, letters missing. It was harassment, plain and simple, designed to wear him down. Marcus didn't flinch. He installed backup generators, encrypted his Wi-Fi, and replaced his locks with reinforced steel bolts. His home was transforming into a fortress, not because he wanted to live in fear, but because he understood strategy. The stronger his defense, the more mistakes his enemies would make. Meanwhile, neighbors who once avoided eye contact began gravitating toward him. A single matter stopped him during his jog, thanking him for standing up to the HOA. A retired teacher brought over cookies, quietly slipping him a folder of HOA fines that looked suspiciously like forged invoices. One by one, the neighborhood started trusting Marcus. He wasn't just protecting himself anymore, he was becoming the line of defense for everyone. Still, Marcus knew the storm wasn't over. These men weren't going to stop at empty threats. They had a plan, and when the next move came, it would be bigger, bolder, and more dangerous. The breaking point came on a stormy Friday night. Rain lashed against the windows, wind howled through the neighborhood, and Marcus could feel it, the kind of tension that soldiers know before an ambush. Around midnight, his cameras picked up movement, two vans, lights off, rolling slow toward his street. The men emerged in groups, dressed head to toe in black, not the sloppy uniforms from before. This time, they looked prepared. They moved toward his house with duffel bags and towels. It wasn't a visit. It was a raid. Marcus' pulse didn't rise. Instead, his body slipped into the same mode it had on foreign battlefields. He had already mapped out every inch of his property, every blind spot, every advantage point. He switched his home system to lockdown, steel bolts sliding into place, shutters clamping down on the windows, backup power humming to life. To the men outside, the house looked ordinary, vulnerable. To Marcus, it was a fortress designed for exactly this moment. The first team tried prying open the back door. That is when the floodlights kicked on, blinding them, followed by a blaring siren that rattled the quiet night. Panic broke their formation. Marcus watched on his monitors, calm as a chess player, noting who carried real weapons and who carried facts. He activated the diversion traps, motion sensors triggered small bursts of light and sound in the yard, making the intruders think they were surrounded. When one of the fake cops smashed a window, Marcus spoke through his intercom, his voice amplified and commanding, "You are trespassing on private property. Your faces are recorded. Your weapons are cataloged. Leave now, or the police will find you here in cuffs." But they didn't leave. They tried to storm the site in runs, forcing the lock with crowbars. Marcus responded with the next stage of protocol. Smoke emitters released a dense fog into the yard, reducing visibility to nothing. The men stumbled, shouting over each other, unable to see who was where. Marcus released his drone, small, silent, circling overhead, recording every detail. One man finally shouted, "He's ex-military. He's playing games with us." That was their mistake. Their fear shaved, and Marcus captured every second of it. He let them struggle, burn through their plan, expose themselves. Then he struck, not with violence, but with precision. He triggered the sprinklers, drenching the yard and shorting out some of their cheap electronic gear. He called local law enforcement at the exact moment he knew the intruders were cornered, feeding them live footage. By the time red and blue lights pierced the storm, Marcus had every angle documented. The men tried to flee, but the ones were boxed in by police cruisers. The so-called HOA cops were dragged out, faces wet, masks ripped away. Neighbors piled onto their porches, shocked to see the threat. These weren't officers at all, just thugs with stolen gear and fake paperwork. Marcus didn't gloat. He stepped outside once the scene was secure, rain dripping from his shoulders, handing over the hard drafts full of recordings to the real officers. His calm demeanor contrasted with the chaos around him, and even the police couldn't hide their respect. For the first time, the neighborhood understood. Marcus wasn't just a quiet veteran living among them, he was the shield they hadn't known they needed. But deep down, Marcus also knew this wasn't the end. The men arrested tonight were foot soldiers. Someone higher up, the HOA leadership, was still out there, pulling the strings. The arrests rattled the neighborhood, but Marcus knew the fight wasn't over. The men who had been dragged off in cuffs weren't masterminds, they were muscle, hired to intimidate. The true danger sat higher up, inside the HOA board itself, men and women in tailored suits who signed their names on fraudulent letters while letting others do their dirty work. If Marcus wanted peace, he would have to dismantle the structure from the top down. The following week, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Attendance was higher than ever, neighbors who had honest stayed silent now wanted answers. The board sat stiffly at the front, pretending to be shocked by the arrests. The president, a smug man named Harold Pierce, tried to frame the whole incident as rogue security volunteers acting without authorization. Marcus sat in the back row, arms crossed, listening. He didn't speak yet. He waited, letting Harold bury himself in lies. When Harold finally declared that all firearms must still be registered with the HOA for safety, Marcus stood. The room went quiet. His voice was steady, but his presence commanded attention. Funny thing, he said, holding up a folder. I've got recordings of those men answering to your phone calls. I've got bank transfers linking HOA funds to shell accounts used to pay them. And I've already given copies to law enforcement and the media. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Harold's face drained of color. The board tried to adjourn, but Marcus wasn't finished. He laid out everything, the fabricated fines, the intimidation letters, the illegal confiscations that had left families without property. He projected video clips from his drones and cameras, showing the fake cops raiding his house, their voices caught clearly on audio. Every neighbor watched in stunned silence as the lies unraveled before them. The fallout was immediate. Police stormed the HOA office the next day, seizing files and computers. Several board members were arrested for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. Harold Pierce himself was led out in handcuffs, shouting that it was all a misunderstanding, but no one believed him anymore. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood transformed. Without the corrupt HOA, families finally felt free, flags flew, kids played in the yards without fear of violations, and homeowners began working together instead of hiding from each other. A new board was elected, made up of honest residents who wanted nothing to do with intimidation or false authority. Marcus refused a leadership role, but he couldn't escape the respect he had earned. Neighbors greeted him warmly, dropping by with food, asking for advice, treating him as the quiet guardian who had stood firm when everyone else was afraid. He didn't bask in the attention. For him, it was simple, peace had to be protected, and justice had to be fought for. One evening, as the sun set over the quiet street, Marcus finally lowered his flag from the pole and folded it with military precision. He looked around at the calm, at the safety that had been restored, and allowed himself a rare smile. This battle was over. He had defended his home, his rights, and his neighbors, not with bullets, but with discipline, strategy, and the unshakable will of a soldier who refused to surrender.